Hi, welcome to a spine-friendly yoga practice. This whole practice is designed for anyone who's experiencing back pain or anyone who has had back pain in the past and they're trying to avoid that. So go ahead and take a comfortable seat. We'll start there. And you're welcome to be in a chair for these first few moments, but if you're sitting on the floor, you're going to want a cushion or a couple of blocks. Anything that can elevate your hips is going to be a little more friendly for your spine. So you might notice that if you get close to the front edge of your cushion, that kind of tilts your pelvis forward and it allows you to have a little more space in your low back. So take a moment to find that comfortable position. The higher, the better in terms of your low back. And then just reach one hand back there and see if you can feel just the natural curve of your lower back. And you might even kind of move in and out of that. And notice as you round and arch that lower back that there might be a place where you feel some pain or some tension. And see if you can avoid that on both sides. And then the other hand comes to your belly as a reminder to hold that belly in. That's a really important piece of keeping our spine healthy. And a spine-friendly practice is engaging these core muscles to create the support for this neutral, healthy spine. So when you find this easy seat, rest your hands on your legs and just close your eyes. And start to take deep breaths here. Breathing in and out through your nose. I'd like you to have as many props available to you today as possible. So blocks, cushions, blankets, straps, anything that assists you so you don't have to strain or force in this practice. So as you breathe here, I'd like you to just pay attention to your spine. So first of all, with the pelvis grounded, the bones of the pelvis grounded on your cushion. As you sit tall, picture your sacrum, the wide triangular shaped bone in the base of your spine. And the tailbone is the very bottom of the spine. See if you can feel tailbone and sacrum. You might even reach your hand back and feel that. As you continue breathing, be aware of the lower back, the lumbar curve, the curve that points inward from behind. 5 vertebrae there. They're big and they're thick. And then moving up into the back of the rib cage, the thoracic spine, 12 vertebrae that travel from about your bottom ribs to the base of your neck. And they make a little outward curve in the back of your body. This is the place where all of your ribs connect. And inside of that rib cage, your lungs and your heart. And then moving up from the base of the neck to the base of the skull is your cervical spine that curves inward again from the back, 7 vertebrae up here. And these are smaller, allow more mobility of our head to move. So take another deep breath here and imagine that whole spine sitting here with its 4 natural curves, tall, comfortable, supported by your abdominal muscles. And then bring your hands together in front of your heart in this gesture of just compassion. This practice of compassion towards our spine. Agreeing not to force ourselves into any postures that cause pain or possible injury. Here to learn and discover our spine. So let's transition around to a tabletop position. And moving anything out of the way that you were using earlier, we're going to move through a really slow cat and cow. So the first thing to move is the tailbone. So I'd like you to just see if you can just move tailbone. And it's impossible really to move it without also moving the sacrum, that big triangular shaped bone. But can you make tiny movements here? And then a little bigger, just moving the sacrum. And you might start to feel kind of a little pinch right there at the bottom of your lumbar spine, the top of your sacrum. And so then move up from there. So you add in the movement behind the ribs, the thoracic spine. Your neck is still neutral. And then let's add the movement of the cervical spine, the neck. So tailbone lifts, move through your spine and all the way up. The last thing that happens is your chin comes up. And then tuck your tailbone round your spine. The last thing that happens is the chin tucks. So moving with your breath in and out of cat and cow. And let the tailbone lead the way. Let the tail wag the dog. And let the head move last in both directions. And notice if there's any point of pain up or down the spine, move a little more gently and slowly through that action. Take your knees a little bit wider and start to point your tailbone back. Reach your hands forward. We're coming towards child's pose, and now the spine is going to be rounded, flexed. So be aware here of any pain or tension, and if this doesn't feel good, come up to elbows and stay a little bit more neutral in the spine. So you can see that my spine is a little more arched inward here as opposed to rounded here. So this could be a nice modification for you if your back is struggling. And we're going to move forward and back. So you're going to exhale back to child's pose and inhale forward. You can just keep your knees right where they are and start to flow forward and back with an inhale and an exhale. Moving with your spine in mind. Notice that the whole spine is really just traveling with you in one piece. It doesn't really move until the very, very end. As you drop into child's pose, there's a little bit of spinal flexion or rounding. And again, you can avoid that if you are in pain. You can keep your spine neutral. Returning to a tabletop, let's tuck our toes and we're going to lift into downward facing dog. And I'd like you to, again, keep this neutral spine in mind as you start to lift your hips. The knees are going to stay super bent. Tailbone shoots now toward the sky. Abs engage and find those natural curves of your spine. So keep your knees as bent as you need to in order not to have this happen. So watch, if I drop my heels and straighten my legs, see how my back kind of rounds? We want to avoid that. We want to keep the spine in this long neutral position with its curves. So bent knees are often helpful for that. Let's slowly walk the feet toward the hands, coming up onto fingertips. And this is also a good place to leave a block so that you can find that neutral spine here. Press hands to shins and then come up into mountain pose. And pause there. So I'm going to leave that block right there at the top of my mat. And better yet, if you have two blocks, that's even better. You can have two blocks here. And then what we're going to avoid with spine injury and pain in the low back, we're going to avoid deep spinal flexion where we're really rounding the back. And so this is going to be a healthier forward fold if you are experiencing back pain. So maybe there's a chair you could put your hands on in front of you or a couple of blocks. Okay. So we're going to move through gentle sun salutations. We'll do two, and we're going to move just super slow with awareness of our spine. So we start with hands at heart center, and then we inhale the arms up. And don't do a back bend here, just lift straight up. And as you come forward, hands back to the heart, bend your knees, hinge from the hips, set your hands on your chair or blocks, and then step one knee down to the earth, and then the other. And then we're just going to shift back towards that child's pose. Coming back up, I'm going to change my blocks. If you don't have blocks, you can put your hands on the floor. We're going to shift forward and just lower halfway down. Press back up and come to child's pose. Again, just trying not to curve the lower back too much. As we come up, let's step the right foot forward. Find your neutral spine. Tucking the back toes, step the left foot forward. Lengthen into that flat back. You can move your blocks. And then let's bring ourselves to standing. Arms up high and hands to heart. So that's probably the most gentle version of sun salutation I can think of. We'll go one round without the blocks just so you can see how that would look, but feel free to use your blocks. Inhale, lift straight up. Exhale, hands to heart, hinge from the hips, and then bring your hands to the mat, knees stay bent. Drop one knee and drop the other knee. So that's a nice gentle transition to the ground. And then tuck the toes, lift into a bent knee, downward facing dog. Shifting forward, knees come again to the mat. Spin your elbows, lower halfway down. And then melt your body to the floor. Come all the way down and lift up into the gentlest, easiest little cobra that you can. And then press back. Tabletop. Tuck your toes. Bent knee, downward facing dog. Shoot your tailbone high. So thinking of traction, like lifting up out of any pressure in the low back. Slowly walk your feet to meet your hands. Lift halfway. And then rise up to mountain, arms overhead. Find that neutral spine, straight body, and then hands to heart. Let's pause in mountain pose. So pressing down through 2 feet firmly, arms at your sides, shoulders on your back, lifting through the crown of your head. Close your eyes and feel the stability of mountain pose. Feet pressing down, legs are active, so hug your muscles onto your bones. Lift your pelvic floor. Draw the low belly in. And imagine your spine sitting inside of your torso with its 4 curves comfortably intact. Does anything need to change? Is there strain in the lower back that might feel better if there was a slight tuck of the tailbone or an arch? What can change to give you a little more space and comfort here? Breathe. Feel and honor this mountain pose. We're doing so much sitting. This standing in mountain pose can be therapeutic to help heal back pain, just learning to stand with support. Let's bring the hands to the crease of the hips, put the bend back in the knees, and as always, we hinge from the hips. As soon as you get to where you can place your hands on your thighs, pause there. You might bring hands to shins a little further, and then again, if you've got those blocks in front of you, use your tools. Use your tools, and we're going to come into a forward fold. So I want you to keep your knees as bent as you possibly can in this forward fold. So it feels like your tailbone is pointing up as your head is tilting down. Put as much length in your back as possible. And again, if this hurts, you're going to stay here in your half lift. Reaching through the crown of the head and keeping your hips back, your core strong. And then let's let the props go. Step back one knee at a time, nice and easy. Again, tucking the toes, we'll come into downward facing dog. Breathe deeply here. Sitting bones lifting to the sky. And then shift forward. Let's hold plank pose. If you've got the strength, pause here on your toes. If that feels like your back's going to start to sag, then drop your knees, but still hug in tight through the belly. Super, super tight. Everything engaged, integrity of the spine. And then if your knees are up, go ahead and lower them. And let's lower again to the floor. Come into easy cobra. Wonderful way to find strength in the back. And then we'll press up through all fours, tuck your toes, and lift into downward facing dog. And then just slowly walking, feet to hands. Find that flat back as soon as you can. Press hands to shins, lengthen. Come back in, mountain pose, arms reach high. This is a really nice way to just, again, get up out of that low back, taller, and then hands settle at heart center. All right, moving into chair pose. Chair is another challenging pose, but it's so good to help create support and strength around your spine. So keeping your feet hips distance apart, hands at the crease of the hips, we're going to bend the knees and sit the hips back. Notice again, there's neutral spine. So whatever I have here, I want to take with me here. The movement happens in the knees and the hips, but not in the spine. So coming into fierce pose, chair pose, pull your shoulder blades back. If you can reach one, grab a block and place a block between your knees. So just like that. And you're going to squeeze that block. You could also use a firm pillow. Squeeze that block nice and tight. Hands come to heart center. And you're welcome to bring your hands to your thighs as well, but really squeeze. So legs getting stronger, core getting stronger. And there's this little action of lifting back, creating a little bit of a back bend, tiniest back bend. Breathe. Just bringing those thigh bones in, sits bones together, lift the pelvic floor. Again, option to bring your hands to your knees. And yeah, your legs might be shaking a little bit, but that's good. They're getting stronger. So we're going to take an easy twist from here. Go ahead and straighten your legs, give them a little bit of a break, and then come back in to chair pose. The left hand is going to cross over to the right knee, and the right hand comes behind you onto your back. So this is a twist that keeps that spine neutral and just a little rotation. The rotation happens more in the upper back. So breathe. This is a lot healthier for the spine than this really deep twist down here. Come back to neutral. Find that chair pose again, left arm to right knee and right hand to the sacrum. Core stays strong. Breathe as much as you can with that neutral spine. Breathe. And then come back to center. Let's remove this block. Find the feet underneath you. Hinge from the hips and come into a flat back. If your body feels okay, you can come down into a deeper forward fold, but just kind of be leery of spinal flexion. All right, we are going to come into warrior one. So keep the block where it is. The right foot stays planted. The left foot comes back and turns on a slight angle. And before you rise up, I want you to see if it feels like your feet are kind of on two train tracks. Okay, so if I was facing you in front, my feet would be about 1 foot apart side to side, as opposed to here on a tightrope. Okay, so step that left foot out a little wider to the side and let that be your warrior stance as you come up. Hands can stay down or lift up. Warrior one. And then just really rooting down. So you might have heard the cue in the past, square your hips to the front of the mat. Notice that causes a little pinch in your SI joint in your low back. So go ahead and keep your hips a little more to the corner of the mat instead of right to the front of the mat. And see if that gives you a little more space in that low back. Breathe in, breathe out. Warrior one with a healthy spine. Hands come to hips, step that foot back. So now your feet are more on that tightrope and a little bit wider. Open up into warrior two. In warrior two, straight up and down through the spine. So we don't want to see this lean forward or back. We want to keep this center as much as possible. If I do warrior two facing you, you'll see that I have more of that natural curve in my back. I'm not rounded, right? I'm as neutral as possible there in your warrior two. Breathe here. And then let's come into side angle. So go ahead and bring your hands to your hips and move from this hip crease. So here's that long spine again to the point where you can just lightly rest the elbow on the thigh. Spine is still long. You might notice a line from the crown of your head through your torso all the way down that leg. Opposite arm is going to come up and over to match that line. And if that puts strain in your low back, keep that hand out of the equation and just stay here. All right, so you're breathing here. Nice deep breaths here. And release that hand. Push on this knee to stand up. Square your toes. We're just going to turn toward the back edge of the mat. So as you wiggle your feet around, find your train tracks, your warrior one. Hips squared more toward the corner of the mat, not quite the straight edge of the mat. Feet are strong, core is supported. Breathe here. Just feel that long, healthy spine sitting inside of your torso. And now open. Find your opening into warrior two. Looking out over the left fingers, and here's your tall spine. Try not to lean forward or back, side to side. Try to be as straight up and down neutral as you possibly can. And there's your breath. Bring your hands to your hips, shifting from the hips. Let's rest on the thigh. And then draw that straight line through the crown of your head, right down your spine into the outside ankle of that back leg. Your hand can stay here, here, or match the line. So really find your abdominal muscles. That's the support for the spine. Try to be light on this hand and use your core muscles to help you out here. Deep breaths. Noticing your body, feeling your body, and avoiding pain. So if you are noticing pain, this arm comes out. Maybe you stay a little higher. You don't want any red lights on the dashboard. Go ahead and come up. Turn the toes. And then with your hands on your hips, just start to heel toe your feet back together. Find mountain pose, friends. All right, let's inhale the arms high, like you're pulling up on a rope to get taller. Lift up out of that low back. Hands come to your heart center. Bend your knees, shift forward halfway. And then find your blocks, your chair or a prop to help you drop one knee and then the other. And come to an upright position for camel. And camel is typically a really deep back bending posture, so we're going to modify it today for a healthy spine. You're going to find your neutral spine. If you're comfortable, go ahead and tuck your toes. And if you have two blocks, this is a nice variation. Just bring your blocks to the side of your legs and fingers come there. And you can press up on your blocks and lift your chest. The other alternative is hands on your glutes, and you're going to press down. So literally press your hands down toward the ground as you lift your chest up. So pull your chest and sternum up, drop your sitting bones down, and notice all that nice length in the torso. Deep, slow breaths here. These back bending poses strengthen the back and open the front. Notice this pose has both strength and softness to it. Where do you feel strength? Where do you notice softness? And as you release back to neutral, let yourself come again to a tabletop position. I'm going to keep my hands on blocks for this. Just a tabletop position, and then widening the knees. Let's bring the hips back again towards child's pose. Remembering that you can stay on forearms and keep that back a little more neutral if rounding your back causes any pain. And breathe here. Feeling breath moving through the back of your body. Feeling a long exhale as muscles relax and release. The breath in glides across the back of the body. The breath out allows muscles to relax and release. We're going to go ahead and come up to a tabletop position, and let's start to make our way down onto our belly. You can put some rolled up blanket under your hips if you like. And just pause right here in the gentlest version of Cobra. So there's no weight in the hands. You're just lifting your head an inch or two off the mat. And I want you to just notice the muscles in the back of your neck working to lift your head. The muscles between the shoulder blades working to hold your shoulders back. And the muscles all the way up and down the spine working to hold you in this spine extension. Breathe here. And then let's go ahead and release our bodies to the ground. Turn one cheek to the floor and just wiggle out your hips. And we'll come back up to forearms. Tuck your belly in, raise up to tabletop. And then we'll bring the legs around. So we're going to come into the safest position for our back, which is lying on our back with good posture. There's one pose that I'd like to offer you that uses a chair. So I'm going to grab a stool. You also could use yoga blocks stacked up for this. So the chair or stool or blocks is going to go here at the top of your mat. And then you're just going to lay down on your back with your head kind of a foot or so away from that chair. All right, so we're going to come up into bridge pose. And for bridge pose, you can use a block. So as you press into your feet, let the block come up under your hips to support you. That's a nice way to have this inversion and the hips extended without having to work too hard to be here. If you would like a little more work, you can just lift your hips and hold the bridge with your own strength. Notice which muscles are working. And notice if you can feel any muscles lengthening or stretching. As we release, let's all put something under our hips so that we can lift our legs up in the air and come into waterfall. And waterfall, if you have something under you, it just makes it a little easier to keep your legs in the air. They can be bent. You can also put a strap around your feet to make it easier to stay here. So what I wanted to show with this chair is a common posture that's offered in a lot of classes is plow pose. And plow is a super big stretch for the back and the neck and contraindicated for anyone that has back injury or back pain. So I just want to show you this variation. You don't have to do this unless you want to get the feel for this, but I'm going to push my weight into my hands here, and I'm going to bend my knees. So you can see that I'm already in a pretty decent back bend, and that might be enough. It might be too much. You can decide. But if you have a chair there and you want to rest your feet on the chair, that gives you a different weight distribution. I think it's important to still keep your hands here, but this supported halasana or plow pose is a little more friendly to the spine because you're not just hanging out in a flexed spine. So there's an option for you anytime you're offered plow. If you've got some props you can use, that might be helpful. It's a really nice inversion, increases blood flow to the brain, the face, and it does stretch the back of the body. So just listen to your body. When you're ready to come out, bend your knees again. Roll. You're probably going to roll onto your prop first. Lower one foot and lower the other foot, and then just release yourself onto the floor. And take a moment to reset, to feel neutral. Maybe slide a hand under your low back. You can keep it there as a little pillow or cushion. We'll move into Savasana. So if you would like, you can put something under your knees, like your blocks under your knees. That's a really nice way to support the low back when you're lying here. Just bending the knees is really helpful. Sometimes a pillow under your head is a nice trick as well. You can bring your hands to your belly if you'd like and just feel your breath. Breath in and breath out. Just let your body settle here. Your spine resting inside of your body. Easy breath moving up and down the spine. Imagine your spine getting a massage with each breath. So as you inhale, your torso expands and kind of squeezes the spine all the way up and down. And as you exhale, the spine gets to just rest in that soft space. Inhale, let your breath squeeze along your spine. And exhale, let your spine rest in the softness of your body. If you start to notice a lot of strain in your back, you can always bend your knees. or elevate your legs. I'm going to end this practice with an invitation to you to stay here as long as you like, to rest here as long as your body is comfortable. And I'm going to just stop the video and say to you namaste and give you the invitation to stay here longer and maybe even to play a guided meditation. Thank you so much for doing this practice to care for your spine. Namaste.